Hi everyone and welcome to Real Opinions, and today I'm finally going to be reviewing Blair Witch 2016. As you may know, I gave the first Blair Witch project a 5 out of 10. I understood why some people liked it. I equally understood why some people hated it. I was right in the middle, but I found myself intrigued by the lore and the theories, so I kind of had an interest in seeing this new film. I also am a big fan of Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett, and so that was the main draw for me. So I approached this film with minor anticipation, especially after you saw all the trailers where it's the new beginning of horror movies and all these quotes, and its original sitting at Rotten Tomatoes was like 100%, and I know that I'd take Rotten Tomatoes with a massive pinch of salt, but that was still fairly intriguing. And then the film came out, and 2 weeks later, the backlash had gone wild, and it seems like everyone hates this film. It's got quite a lot of negative reviews. General audiences don't seem to be very happy with it. So all of a sudden I did a 180 and was like, oh, I don't know if I want to see this movie anymore. But in the end, I did, and I approached it with trepidation instead of anticipation. So this is what I think. Having left the film after all the backlash, I was surprised that it wasn't as samey as the original as some people had said. It's not a great film, not by a long way, but it is solid. I almost would say I enjoyed it. I'm gonna give you a very, very general rating here, and then I'm gonna go into quite specific details, so it will get very spoilery. So here's just the general gist. It's okay. Adam Wingard can definitely do better, but I was not offended by this film. Right, now that that's out of the way, I'm going to be going a bit more in depth. I'm not going to be explicitly spoiling things, but the way that I talk about certain aspects of the film will probably imply quite heavy spoilers. So, let's start with the main issue most people have with this film, in that they are claiming it is basically the exact same film beat for beat, which is something I want to talk about because I thought I was going to hate that, but I don't think that that's true. It's equatable to like The Force Awakens in that regard, in that it's definitely a nostalgia film that has been designed to sort of like get rid of the bad taste in your mouth left over by the previous one. So in The Force Awakens case, you know, it's kind of making up for the prequels, and in this film's case, it feels like we're going back to basics because Book of Shadows was weird and no one liked it. It's back to formula. But I do think there are some innovations and expansions that mean that you can't really say this is the same film. I know that, like, a lot of people have said this is the kind of thing you'd expect from a sequel that was made a year later, like the Paranormal Activity ones. But I absolutely don't think that's true, because when I see those films, they literally don't try. Whereas this, you can tell Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett care about what they're doing, and they have tried to do something different. And the fact of the matter is, this film does indeed have some very major differences from the Blair Witch, as well as some major similarities. Most importantly of all, it confirms things that were speculated upon for years. This is a sequel to a 17-year-old film that people have been obsessed with since it came out, that they have been reading fan theories about, they have been analysing it, and they've been picking it apart, trying to find concrete answers, and this film goes along and just provides some of them. So, first off, and we are probably going to get a little spoilery here, so this is your big final last warning, it confirms, full-on confirms, that there is a supernatural presence. From like 40 minutes in, you're seeing things that absolutely could not be happening without a supernatural presence there. There was a recent video about whether or not in the original Blair Witch there even is a Blair Witch, and if it was actually just Mike and Josh kind of manipulating things to look supernatural so that they could actually take advantage of Heather's fear and kill her in the house at the end, because for whatever reason they hated her. So there's a big fan theory that there might not be anything supernatural going on in the Blair Witch Project. Now, obviously, you can't let this film impact the original intention of the other film, but as far as this film here is concerned, yes, there is a witch. 100%, definitely is a witch. Secondly, they amp up one of my favourite elements of the first film, which is that there was time distortion. In the first film, the characters are kind of stuck in this strange, time-distorted area of the woods where it seems like days aren't going by normally, and the geography's shifting, and they're just walking around in the woods, never getting anywhere. In this film, they full on 100% clarify that the witch has powers that can control time and space. There are these two other characters that separate from our main group. And while it's only been a day for our characters, when they next bump into these two characters, it's been like 5 days and they've all got long, like, disheveled beards and they're all panicked and like, you look exactly the same as when we last saw you. This is 100% verified by this film that the witch can control time and space, and it uses it in a way that actually services the story as well, in a really nice way. I really actually liked that element of the film. It was probably my favourite element of the film until the ending. In that, they use it so that the witch makes the whole time night. Hours and hours go by and it is still night. The characters go to sleep and they wake up and it's still night. And that makes it so much scarier because it's never safe. Unlike the first Blair Witch, if you remember in my original review, I complained that every time it cut back to day, I would just groan and go, oh, we're back to arguing about the map, I guess, because nothing scary happened in the daytime sequences of the Blair Witch Project. Well, now we have a film entirely set at night, where it's entirely a constant looming threat, and I loved that decision. They also do something quite neat towards the end of the film where they imply that it might be cyclical, like the characters might be stuck in a time loop, and that the characters from the first film might be stuck in a time loop, and that maybe they're crossing over. The two films are crossing over in this strange timeless zone. I liked that idea. I thought that idea was very clever. It wasn't maybe expanded upon enough, but it was unique and different, and it's not something that's in the original Blair Witch Project. They also added other new little elements that I'm just going to run through really quick. They add in this voodoo thing. They added an element of body horror, which, you know, that's different. They are different things that were not in the original Blair Witch, and they lead to, like, kills happening on screen, which is absolutely something you didn't get in the original Blair Witch Project, because it was all about subtlety and about implying and suggestive horror. This film absolutely shows you monsters, and it shows you people dying on screen. This film is a lot less subtle and a lot less about implying things. Whether you see that as a good thing or a bad thing, it does mean that it is not the exact same film as the Blair Witch Project. There's also a few other little things, like I like how the characters, because of the reputation of the Blair Witch and because of the fact that they're actually doing a serious investigation into where the main character's sister might be, they take in as many cameras as possible so that they have got coverage of everything. And that's a nice little idea that, like, with the original one, it's a couple of people with 2 cameras, and now it's like, we've got cameras here, we've got cameras there, we got a drone camera, we got all this. So, but it's story motivated. It's because they want to see everything. There's also these 2 weirdo characters in the film who are a little bit meta, I thought, that they sort of represent the Blair Witch obsessives. They're always talking about, like, I read this theory online about this, and if you read this book here, it says this, and they feel like they are sort of stand-ins for Blair Witch obsessives who read too much into the original film. That's a little bit different. There's a section towards the end of the film that's set in the tunnels underneath the house, which not only is that a fresh, original idea that has totally originated in this film. There's nothing about tunnels in the original film at all. Not only is it unique to this film, but it is, without a doubt, one of the scariest parts of any Blair Witch film. Then there is all the stuff at the very end of the film in the house with the strange Slender Woman, as it's being called, pursuing the people, and the explanation of the backs, the faces against the wall thing from the end of the Blair Witch Project. Major spoilers. This film confirms that Rustin Parr was indeed being manipulated by the Blair Witch to kill people, as he said he was, because the character of Lane in this film, who has sort of been caught in the time loop for years, was the impression I got, starts saying, you have to do what she says, Rustin Parr was right, otherwise you can never leave. All of these things are confirmed, all of these new elements are added. You cannot say that this is the same film. That being said, a lot of this film is very, very similar. Structurally, I agree, it is the same film. We begin with interviews. We begin with people going into the woods. We begin with the sort of night out camping, and I heard some strange noises. Then we have the sort of part in the daytime where they sort of fracture apart. Then the wandering around and like, wait, where's the car? I don't remember where the car is. Then another night. Then one of the group goes missing, and everyone's like, where is he? Starts yelling his name over and over again. Then they panic, stuff goes wrong, and they end up at the house. They go down to the cellar, there's a back against the wall thing, and then, I think from that point on, it starts to do its own thing. So, at that point, it does diverge a little, but yes, structurally, it is a very similar film. But most sequels are, and I think if you break every film down to the most basic level, like I just did then yes, you're gonna get a very similar sequel. I could do that with almost any film if I really, really tried, you know? Like, if you just did something like, oh, our heroes go to a place, they get lost, then they get in trouble, then they go then one of them dies, then they go here. That could be any film. So you can't really break the film down into its most basic elements just to support your argument. But whatever. I do agree that there is some wasted potential here to do something radically different. And whilst in the last 20 minutes it starts to do that, it does feel like, why didn't you do that for the rest of the film? Then here's a few things that I think they did waste. The drone camera is totally superfluous in this film. I don't know why it was there at all, other than to get a couple of kind of master shots and establishing shots of the forest. I thought at one point like that maybe we'd be lucky and the drone camera would go up above the trees and we'd see something weird like a rustling. Or like the trees kind of moving in the distance, but no, it's just there to get some totally needless master shots, and then to get caught in a tree for one of the characters to go and climb up the tree to try and get it for no reason. Like, it's in the middle of when everything's going wrong and people are dying, and she's just like, I'm going to climb up the tree to get the drone camera. You know, why? Something's literally right behind you, chasing you. I get that she probably wanted to try and see what was going on around and get her bearings, but it was quite a pressing time. Then here's my major number one criticism, and I know some people will roll their eyes because this is just basic reviewer criticism of any horror film nowadays, but the fucking jump scares are some of the worst I have seen in a long time. I will say that they didn't actually annoy me as much as they do in some films, but I think that might have just been to do with the sound mix in the cinema, because they didn't feel that loud, so they didn't even make me go like, for fuck's sake. They just sort of didn't faze me at all, but I think that was more to do with the setup in the cinema rather than the actual mix of the film itself, because this is one of the worst cases I've seen in a long time of quiet bang. And the worst ones, as everyone has pointed out, are the ones where it's people wandering around going like, hey, where's, I don't know, Alex, I don't know, that's the name I made up, where's Alex, and then Alex runs in front of the camera and goes, hey, what are you doing, and like, why did you do that, why? There is a point in the film, in fact, where one of the characters actually goes, will everyone stop doing that, because it happens two in a row, and I went, oh, so you're gonna stop doing it now that you've made that joke? No. And that annoyed me even more, because I know Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett are smart people, and they've directly acknowledged that this jump scare nonsense was getting really annoying, and then they carry on doing it, and I just thought, no, now you're pissing me off, because you know what you're doing is cheap. As well as that, there are these jump scares that made me laugh more than anything, which are when the camera kind of goes like, and it happens before it even gets to the Burkittsville woods. It happens in the beginning sequences where you're just seeing them hang out as friends. Like, they sit talking, and then all of a sudden, and it would cut to like them in a party or something. Or you'd get like a shot where it would just be totally silent, and then we'd cut to another shot from later, and it would just be the sound of like the camera being picked up that would make the sort of jump. And those jolts that happen from camera glitches just make me laugh, because they remind me of a Halloween horror video that we did like last year that I filled with them as a joke. But it's just so stupid, and it doesn't look real either. That was one of the things that really annoyed me about a lot of this film, is it doesn't feel like found footage. It feels like something that's been produced in an editing suite. There's a lot of things like that where I felt like this doesn't feel grimy and realistic enough. The sound design changes in general are a problem for me. It's very weird to have this many problems with the sound of a film, but in the original Blair Witch, one thing I did like was the sound design. When people are like sleeping in the tents at night, you hear like very distant, faint sounds, or like children laughing, or these genuinely creepy but sort of almost avant-garde sounds. This is a modern horror movie made in 2016. Do you want to guess what the sounds are in this one? Yep, and then literally trees crashing down, which had me think, 1 minute, is like you don't see what's making the trees crash down, but you hear these massive thudding footsteps at times. I was like, well, it is fucking Cloverfield now. What's that? Is there a literal kaiju in the Burkittsville woods? But one of the bits that was also emblematic of this change to the sound design is they actually show a clip from the original Blair Witch Project of the very ending, like one of the most iconic moments from the original film, in which Heather runs down into the basement, sees whichever one is alive, Mike, stood facing the wall, and then you don't see what happens, you just see her, she just screams and drops the camera. And that's it. You don't know what happens to her. You don't hear anything like coming to her side and hitting her. She just makes a panic noise and then drops the camera. When they show the clip in this film, they've added a little something. She runs down and she goes, oh, hey. And then, and she falls to the ground. And it's like, 1 minute, now the continuity's all fucked. Why did you do that? Why did you add that noise to what was already renowned as being a subtly scary scene? And that feels very emblematic of what this film is like in general. As I said, until the very end of the film, it does feel a little bit like it's making tiny variations on the Blair Witch formula, but they are tiny, and so you do feel like you're getting a very similar structure. And my other major flaw is that is a little half and half for me. It does, in answering all its questions and all these things that it sort of confirms, it does detract from the very abstract mystique of the original film a little. You watch the original film and you don't know what the fuck is going on. You don't know anything about anything, and that is itself a little bit creepy, and it gives it a very mysterious atmosphere that makes it enticing, and it's why people obsess over it to this day, because we know the footage isn't real anymore, so there's got to be a reason why people keep coming back to it, and it is that sort of suggestive, very kind of vague feeling that you don't know what's actually happening, and you can therefore read into it and do as much as you want with it. And I feel like I can understand why this film would therefore piss people off, because that's 17 years of having that feeling, and then two people who have nothing to do with the original film have just come in and gone, yeah, there is a witch, this is the witch, here's a monster, this is time distortion, this is what was happening here, this is all your answers, and you're like, okay. But for me, it didn't bother me that much because I don't have that obsessive relationship with the first film, and it made this film itself actually a lot more entertaining for me. As someone who didn't like the original Blair Witch, or was mostly indifferent to it, this film, I have to say, and I feel a little guilty saying this film scared me more than the original Blair Witch. And I know that I've just gone, the original's so suggestive and so subtle and so psychological, and this film's just loud noises. It's not the jump scares that got me in this film, it's the last sort of 20 minutes and the bit in the tunnels were scarier to me than anything in the original film. I'm going to be honest, and I can realise that I'm setting myself up for people going like, stupid millennial, doesn't understand anything, he's grown up on all these Insidious films. I hate the Insidious films. Like I said, I don't love this film, I did actually get something from that last 20 minutes, and I won't lie. As much as I question why Wingard and Barrett did this, I have looked at a lot of interviews and they really seem to care. And not only do they seem to care, but they have answers and justifications for all of their decisions. Particularly Wingard seems adamant that this should have always been found footage, because one of the things that I questioned was, why is this film found footage? Because they have cameras in their ears that are used to set up reverse shots. They have these cameras set up on trees that provide master shots. They have the drone cameras, as I said before. They have all these different camera angles that they then cut together into a point where you're wondering why this is even found footage anymore, because it resembles a conventional movie. But Adam Wingard was like, no, the Blair Witch needs to be found footage. And he seems like a really sincere fan, and he seems like he really genuinely cares about this film, and that did actually make me like it a little bit more. He seems to truly believe that, if nothing else, he made the film that he wanted to make. So I will give him credit for that 100%. For every question it answers, it does raise... No, maybe for every 3 questions it answers, it does raise a couple of its own as well. So there is still some mystery. We still don't know what that light is towards the end of the film. We don't even know what the creature we see is. Apparently it isn't the Blair Witch, so who knows. there is still some mystery surrounding this legend, so it's not. I don't think it went overboard, like undoing all the ambiguity either. Overall, I'd give this film. Well, I was thinking I was at a firm 5 for the entire film, where I was thinking, on one hand, this is sort of doing its own thing, on the other hand, it isn't, and fuck these jump scares. But the last 20 minutes was probably enough for me to push this up to a 6 out of 10, and I am genuinely surprised that is not negative from me. That is, I honestly didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. A 6 out of 10. And if you remember, I gave the Blair Witch Project a 5 out of 10. So, I know I'll probably get a lot of hate for this, but there we go. Definitely Adam Wingard should be doing other things. He shouldn't be doing this, but it is better than I thought it would be. There we go. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.